Morning. Welcome to my Side Chat. Oh man, there's a train coming. I just am hitting it. On my way to work, trying to get in a decent hour. It's 6:49 on Friday, August 8th. Thought I'd make a video about the crypto markets. My perspective, what's been going on lately. Last night, Ethereum attempted to touch 4,000, and it looks like it's still inching towards that, getting rejected and kind of inching towards it again. It's a Friday. We'll see if it crosses that line today. I hope it does. That would be very bullish. Being that it's August, there's a lot of influencers and analysts who will say that, and rightly so, that the month of August is typically pretty bullish and in the green for crypto. Summer is coming to an end. People are coming back from vacation, going back to school and whatnot. And that tends to change investments, where the summer is usually kind of red or flat, which hasn't really been the case this summer, at least as far as Bitcoin goes and like the markets in general. I think, after May, we did have a sell in May and walk away event, when there was still some people that were saying that we weren't going to, that this cycle was going to be different, which caused a lot of hesitation. I hesitated to sell in May and walk away, and that turned out to be a mistake. Which I've kind of just been holding and watching a lot anyways, and moving my chips around a bit anyhow. But so I mean, Bitcoin, we saw, everything kind of dumped a bit after May, and then we had June, July. The market, I think, I have to go back and double check, but where the total market cap of all crypto was, I think, and where were we in May? If we were approaching 4 trillion again. But in any case, it was down, it fell back down to like 3.5 or below 3.5. And now we're back approaching 4 trillion again. Really, the big question that pertains to me and a lot of other people is, when is altcoin season coming? When's it coming? When's Santa Claus gonna come down the chimney and bring us altcoin season? A lot of us have started to lose faith that that's ever gonna happen. I think, losing faith, but I mean, there's all of the macro factors and the crypto factors. I think a lot of this stuff is there for that potentially to happen. And there's a lot of people, a lot of influencers and analysts saying that if that's going to happen, it needs to happen before the end of the fall. And one analyst specifically I follow, who went into he had like a 45-minute video explaining in detail why, basing it off of previous cycles, that the bull run would be over, or that he was going to be selling all of his crypto by like October 8th. It was fairly specific. And he had good justification for that. Now, on the other hand, him and other influencers I've seen who have said that the fall is going to be the end of any bull run. There are others who say and maintain that this cycle is different. And I think there are a lot of reasons why that's true. And so it's kind of hard to say. I said the same thing about the sell in May and walk away. And I was wrong there, that this cycle is different, and that might, that won't be the case this time. But that's a different thing altogether. Whether or not, President Trump yesterday announced that he signed an executive order saying that 401ks are now allowed to invest in cryptocurrency. I'd need to read into that some more and see how effective that's actually going to be, and does that mean, like tomorrow we're going to be just able to, change our 401k investments to it's going into Bitcoin or it's probably, I'd imagine it would be ETFs, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and ETFs, which is great for those two cryptos, and that's another thought about this cycle altogether. Are you guys gonna go, or hello? Oh my God. The pedestrians aren't paying attention. The light's been green. We're waiting on you to cross the street. They're just standing there. Okay. Finally. Broke my train of thought. The train got derailed. The 401ks. So yeah, that's another thing about this cycle too, is that there's all of these bullish factors that are coming into play specifically for the large cap coins like Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana and XRP. And I think some people who, like my mom, who have just primarily been trading and or holding those large cap coins, have done very well this cycle, obviously. And if you were holding just Bitcoin and Ethereum, from like the end of last year or at some point last year into this year, maybe you traded, you sold at some tops, and then it dipped, and you bought again a couple of times, and you've done really well. Even if you were just holding, you've done really well. But if you're like me and you were holding mostly altcoins through December, first off, your portfolio crashed after Trump took office in January, like 75%. And then whatever gains came back, depending on what you were holding, it gained 30% back by May, and then that dumped again. Just kind of been standing around waiting, hoping that altcoin season will hit. But that's gonna require. I saw somebody in one of the chat rooms I was in yesterday specifically say, like, for that to happen, it's gonna take like the government handing out money to people, like the unemployment checks that we were getting during COVID. I think maybe that was a factor in the last bull run in 2021. That had to be when people were getting, an extra $600 a week and didn't even know what to do with all that money. And the government was just pumping liquidity into the system directly to people. So we're waiting on that. That would be great. I don't know when or why that would happen. And maybe something will trigger that. For something to trigger that, there's going to have to be some other large economic crisis, and that's not going to be good. And that's, for the greater economy, that's going to ramp up inflation even more, on top of whatever the tariffs are going to do. And the other thing that we're hoping for, or that people are hoping for, the markets are hoping for, is the interest rate cuts from the Federal Reserve, which it's seeming very likely is going to happen in September. I saw a report the other day about the likelihood that that's going to happen, and now it's like up to like a 94% chance at this point that the Fed is going to lower interest rates in September. Even though, and at the risk of messing with what they would have to do to justify lowering interest rates would be to say that, you know, the tariffs, whatever inflation it causes, would only be temporary. I don't know that that's true. You know, if inflation causes, or if tariffs cause, you know, a 10% spike in inflation or something, an increase in inflation, like the inflation rate. So I think that's really how they're measuring it. It's just like year over year inflation, and it's like, oh, it's climbing at, right? If I'm remembering this correctly, hopefully I'm explaining this properly. Inflation is climbing. You know, hopefully it only climbs at like 2%. I think that was their goal, is to get it down to 2 something year over year. That's good if you can keep inflation at 2%. And that means like your average savings account is actually gaining on inflation at that point. But I don't think it's actually been there. I haven't checked recently, but I want to say it's been closer to 3 or 4%, and they're worried about it going up even higher. And then the way that things are affecting the bond markets, is that really is probably more of an effect on interest rates than is the bond markets and yields there, and interest rates, and that has to do with the value of the dollar, and again, inflation. So the Federal Reserve has a tough job, and especially now they're trying to deal with, trying to weigh fighting high unemployment and also inflation at the same time. Normally the way you fight high unemployment is the lower interest rates at the cost of raising inflation, and it's kind of a balancing act between the two. I think maybe that's simplifying it considerably, but anyhow, regardless, the news that the Federal Reserve would be lowering interest rates would be extremely bullish for the markets. Lowering interest rates and then initiating quantitative easing, and pumping liquidity into the markets even more, which I don't talk about quite as much, but that in the past, in previous bull runs, has been, especially for altcoin season, has been a huge catalyst to launch that, and to really see an influx of money into crypto and other high-risk assets. So here we are. We're headed into, you know, we're the beginnings of August. We'll see what happens in these coming weeks. I'm kind of hopeful. Do I want to go buy? I'm going to go buy them. We'll run to the grocery store before I get to work. Yeah, I'm kind of hopeful, optimistic. Let's here we are, August, September, October. If we're going to have any sort of altcoin season, it better happen soon. And me personally, I've got a list of 8 or so altcoins that I'm spread out between, some more and less than others. And I've already gone through and set price targets for each of those coins. My hope is that, you know, at different points, different coins will pump, and as I hit I can talk today. As I hit my price targets, then I will be taking profits out as soon as they hit. I've got to be better about taking profits and not don't just listen to people on YouTube saying, hey, don't sell yet, it's gonna pump way higher. No, you just, you know, when it hits a certain price target, you gotta sell 10, 20%. You know, the next price target, then sell another 10, 20%. I really hope we don't find ourselves in January and realize, you know, we're in another bull market or a bear market, and we're stuck holding bags again, watching everything plummet. So I really don't. I really hope that doesn't happen. After being in this game for so long. So that's about all I got. I'm gonna run into Sprouts here real quick and get me some bubblies. So those make me very happy. Have a good day, everyone. Happy Friday.